Welcome to this evening's candidate forum for the Assembly District 97. We're very happy to have you all here this evening. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you especially to the candidates for agreeing to attend this evening. I know that the time is short and the election is right around the corner and every minute counts. So thank you for agreeing to be here this evening to answer questions and let the voters get a chance to know you. The Waukesha County Federated Library System is sponsoring this event, and the Waukesha County Federated Library System is a state-funded agency that exists to help improve and support the libraries of Waukesha County. A lot of people don't know about us because we really run behind the scenes and we provide services to the libraries. So we felt that we should sponsor this forum as it is a great way to show and to demonstrate to libraries that we think that candidate forums are a great way to have the voters become informed before they cast their ballot at an election. So I would like to thank a few people. I would especially like to thank Larry Nelson, who is on the Waukesha County Federated Library System Board, and he helped to provide a lot of support for the event and did a lot of work for us. And Lori Florent, who's in the back, who actually did all the work. So thank you, Larry and Lori, for all your help. Just a few housekeeping things this evening. This is a forum, not a debate. So we provided the questions to the candidates in advance so they had time to think about them. And we will give them time to respond to their questions. And so they're not going to be talking back and forth. It's not a debate, it is a forum, so it's a chance for you to get a chance to hear them. We will keep time. There is 2 minutes allotted for each question. We will start with the new person for each question. We have arranged the candidates in alphabetical order because we're librarians. And that's what we do really well. And so we will go through and start with someone new for each question. And just to show that we're very flexible librarians, at the end of the evening, if there's enough time, we'll give a little bit longer for the last question to be responded to, if there is adequate time. We did the math, and it seemed like we would be short on time, so we just said 2 minutes per question. And Lori is the official scorekeeper, so she can hold those up. Lori in the back will show you when you have 15 seconds left. So that just so you have a visual cue that your time is running short, so you'll want to wrap it up. So I think that about covers it. So without further ado, I would ask the first question to candidate Allen. And the first question is, tell us about your experience and background.
Yes, first I'd like to introduce my wife and 2 children, Angela and Christine and Ellie Wade girls. So glad that they're here tonight. Okay, do I need this? Yes? Yes. So, my wife and family are here. And to understand my experience and background, you should know that Angela and I have been married for 23 years, and that I sincerely believe in the value of marriage and family. Today, society wants to distort marriage and family, but really, marriage and family are the building blocks of a strong society. Who created marriage? Did our founding fathers create it? Did the King of England create it? Or was it created many years before that? God created marriage. So it seems fair to say that God's rules ought to apply to marriage, not society's. In my marriage, I have learned a lot. I have learned forgiveness, and I have learned humility, and I have learned to love. To truly love. Of course, Angela is never hesitant to remind me that I have a lot more to learn. It is through marriage and through the family unit that values are taught and transferred from generation to generation. It is family that gives order to society. To build a stronger Wisconsin, we should encourage love and marriage and family. It is upon these foundational values that I will act as your representative.
Good. That's pretty good.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank the Federated Library System for hosting the event and for you, the audience, for investigating the candidates and spending your time this evening with us to learn a little bit more about who we are. My name is Joe Bansky. I've been married to my wife, Jennifer, for 19 years. We have 2 children, Audrey, who is 9, and Jackson, who is 6. My wife is a brilliant mechanical engineer. Several years ago, she felt a desire to impact children through becoming a high school math teacher. She's worked in 2 out of the 3 school districts in this area. She was a STEM director at the Kettle Moraine School District and is presently the coordinator for a new public charter computer science school in McGuire. While I am proud of her career accomplishments, I am in awe of her amazing, beautiful way that she is a mom and a compassionate spouse to me. 14 years ago, I started a small business with 2 partners. Since then, I've become the sole owner of that business. I'm proud to say that 2 of my original employees are still working with me, although one of them actually retired just a few months back. My other staff have been with me no less than 5 years. My experience as a business owner is unmatched by any other candidate running for this office. My experience gives me the unique position of understanding what taxes, healthcare costs, and over-regulation do to impede small business growth. My commitment to serve our community started way back in 1995 as a high school coach at Waukesha South. In 2010, I started to serve our community at Fox River Church and our youth and family ministries. I currently direct our Waukesha campus Upward Sports Ministry. 2010 also saw me get elected in my first term as a supervisor in the town of Waukesha. My time in service politically saw the town deal with issues that were highly politically charged and will impact the community for decades, if not a century or more. In every split decision since 2012, I was the deciding vote. This placed me in the bullseye over and over for political manipulation and retribution. Many times I was the subject of editorial writing by those who viewed things different.
But we'll give you a chance.
That's fine. You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it on? All right. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight, and good evening to everyone. I'm Kathleen Cummings, Republican candidate for the 97th Assembly District. I've been married for 39 years. I have 3 grown children, and they've all attended the Waukesha Public School System. I've been an active member at St. Mary's Catholic Church, active member of Potawatomi Boy Scout Council, part of Troop 159, Merit Badge Counselor, attended 2 national jamborees, one in Washington and one at our new site. I've helped build young leaders. Lifetime member of the Girl Scouts of America, past board member of the Autism Society of Southeastern Wisconsin for 8 years. Now that's really a trick when you have a networking box lunch for 1,500 attendees with 0 budget. It was successful, by the way. I've been a county board supervisor for 15 years and alderman for 13 years. Our community has faced and overcome many challenges and issues during those many years that I've been in office, and we will face many more in the future, yet especially at the state. I have proven to this community that I have the political experience, work ethic, and personal resolve necessary to take me to the next level and overcome future obstacles. And I will build and create an environment where our state can thrive. At this point, many of us have looked at the different committees that we would like to serve on. But it will be up to the leadership as to what committees we do serve on. But if I were to have my choice, I would serve on Small Business Development Committee, because that is where businesses grow. Jobs, economy, mining, and particularly to my heart is veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Erin Terry. I'm an alderman here in the city currently. My background consists of sales. That's really where I came up and learned what I know now. I currently work for the digital ad agency at the Journal-Sentinel. I've worked with small and medium-sized businesses for the last 2 years, talking with them on how they can grow their business. I've learned a lot from them. In my public sector experience as alderman over the last 18 months, I've also learned a lot from the various members of the Common Council and the 2 mayors I've worked with. I've seen a lot of places. I've lived a lot of places in my life. I know what a good place is when I see it. We're sitting in one right now. I kind of appreciate the setup here with all the marriage talk. Sorry to trump everybody, but today's my 7th wedding anniversary. Marriage is certainly important. 7 years ago today, on a rainy day in Fire Lake, Minnesota, I married my wife. So when we talk about experience, I'm remiss if I don't talk about that. And I believe it's important, even that experience in and of itself, the reason that this position is open in the first place. Having a support system, the way that I do at home, and the way that most of us may, is very important. And she's always added value to me as a man, as a father, as a husband, and certainly as a leader.
Hello, I'm Brandon Roesner, candidate for the State Assembly in Waukesha. My wife Karen and I live on the southeast side of Waukesha by Manuka Park. My wife, Dr. Karen Roesner, recently opened her family practice clinic in the community. We love Waukesha. We have a 2-year-old daughter named Evelyn, another on the way in a few weeks, so we're excited to grow our family here. We spend many Wednesday nights at the Read a Book slumber party upstairs at the library. More to come on that later. I'm running because I believe Waukesha and Wisconsin needs a fresh start, and that's why I got into the race. I have 10 years private sector experience. I spent a year working under Governor Walker's administration doing healthcare policy at the state capitol, and I believe that things that I can bring to the table in the state legislature will make Waukesha and Wisconsin a great place to live, work, and retire. If our folks aren't staying in Wisconsin, if they're moving elsewhere, if our graduates aren't staying here, if they're getting jobs elsewhere, and if the middle-class family can't make it here, then Waukesha and Wisconsin aren't the best places to live, work, and retire. The ideas that we'll talk about tonight relate to some of those things that make Wisconsin a great place to live, work, and retire. I went to Milwaukee School of Engineering. Karen went to Marquette and then the Medical College. We love the area and want to represent at the state level. Thanks a lot.
Let me begin by thanking all of you for being here this evening and for the Waukesha County Federated Library System for hosting this event. I think that these forums are incredibly valuable opportunities for us to engage with the community, to talk about the issues that are important to you. I'm not as old as the rest of you on this panel, so I do not have 39 years of marriage experience, but I can assure you that my background is deeply rooted here in this community. As I sit here tonight and I see friends from church or from growing up, former teachers in the back, it reminds me again of why I'm running for this office. My grandparents came to Waukesha during the Great Depression and built a house not far from here on Beechwood Avenue. I'm a graduate of Waukesha West High School, and I've lived here my entire life outside of my time at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I majored in history and international studies. Having this background allows me to understand the issues that this community faces. I will be a reliable, conservative voice for our community. I believe in lower taxes, individual liberty, and I'm proudly pro-life. I look forward to talking with you more tonight, to answering your questions, and to serving as your next state representative.
Thank you. It doesn't sound. Can you hear me?
Now it sounds like it's on.
All right. Question number 2, and we'll start with you, Mr. Bansky. Should you become elected, what will be your top 3 priorities?
Thank you. My number 1 priority will be tax reform, specifically with regard to income tax. This is a burden on our families as well as our job creators in small business and medium-sized business as well. So it'll be my number 1 priority. My second priority will be education reform. Governor Walker has asked for the repeal of Common Core, which has been an issue that actually motivated me to get into the race. I think it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I was recognized for my position on Georgia. My third one will be foster care and adoption. the current cost and paperwork associated with our care of our children that are parentless, whether that's through drug addiction or criminal problems or loss of life, is a burden to families that is just unwarranted. Families are spending $20,000 and $30,000 and $40,000 to adopt a child who is stuck in foster care. And it's time for us to take a look at that issue and find a way to streamline good families taking kids and giving them the love and the nurturing that needs.
Thank you. My top 3 priorities are job creation, reduced taxes, and lean government. Job creation. My great-grandfather came from Italy, and he worked on the Panama Canal, and he brought 3 or 4 of his sons over here. We created jobs. We created small business. Now, creating jobs, I said earlier that one of the committees I wanted to serve on was small business development. That's where I will learn from the ground up what it will take. Creating jobs, it's the small and middle level business will take us to the next step. Reducing taxes. We've all saw where when you reduce taxes, it helps make government smaller, and by reducing regulations and reducing the influence of government on our job providers, that will help create jobs. Our important issues facing our states continue to be the economy and job growth. The third item that I would like to would be my priority would be to take those lean government principles that we do at the county level and apply them at state government. We don't do enough of it. Industry has already shown us how to do it. Less paperwork, cross-training, and being smarter in how we do it. I believe the public does not think that one member of the Assembly can solve all the problems, but one member can be a source of new ideas to discuss. I will be that member to first get on the committee that will create jobs, reduce taxes, and take those lean government principles I learned from Waukesha County, being a county board supervisor, to Madison. Thank you.
My top 3 priorities are simple. The first one, as I've spoken about in other forums, is local control. Putting more local control in the leaders that all of us elect here is important. One of the biggest issue, in fact, the biggest issue that we can even talk about tonight that falls under that umbrella is our water application. Until that's complete in 2018, there is no issue we can talk about tonight that's larger than that. Having someone in the Assembly in that role who's best suited to ensure that it gets done and gets done on time is important. I've met with our water utility manager, and there is a role for the Assembly in this, both in this district and in the 98. Talking about other local control issues, a good example that happened to us just in the last year is a cell phone tower ordinance that we had to change. It was a law that was changed in Madison without any public input at all. It made us change the ordinance here locally, taking the control away from the people that all of us here elect. The secondly is jobs. I uniquely see my role in the Assembly as someone who is to connect people who need jobs with those who need work. There's work out there, and there's people that need work, and it takes a local leader in order to get that done. And then lastly, an issue that is a priority of mine as your next Assemblyman is trust. There's 59,000 people, roughly, in this Assembly district. At best, maybe 9,000 will vote next Tuesday and throughout the last couple of weeks. About 50,000 people there don't trust one of the people who's going to be your next elected representative, and they're sitting up here right now. So it's important to earn back their trust as not only we grow positivity in government, but grow this party as well.
The 3 biggest issues I talk about when I go door to door in the district and hear from other folks are jobs, taxes, and health care. One of my roles, I serve as president of the Milwaukee School of Engineering Alumni Board, and I have the privilege of meeting with a lot of Waukesha-based small, medium, and large businesses. Even before the campaign even kicked off, I built good relationships with folks over at Generac, small businesses like right down the road. Dave Stearns owns a little business called Illuminate, mid-sized businesses like Wellwell Manufacturing on the south side of Waukesha. And when I go around and talk to small business owners, they say, you know what, Brandon, government doesn't create jobs. I think we can all agree on that. if the state government would just get out of the way with some of the red tape at the DNR, at the Department of Revenue, at DPI, if some of those agencies would get out of the way with the red tape, we could buy a building and expand. We could hire more people. We wouldn't have to spend time with some of the audits that occur. And I hear these stories when I go door to door from small business owners. And I think that ties into job creation. If we can create jobs and enable small business owners to create jobs, people will stay here to work, grow families, and Wisconsin and Waukesha become great places to live, work, and retire. Taxes. Wisconsin still remains one of the highest taxed states when it comes to property, income, sales, and a host of other fees. And that's still unacceptable. I still think there's a lot of work that can be done. When I look at the $70 billion state budget, I have some specific ideas of things that we can cut to reduce government spending, and I think that tax reform will enable and foster a better job creation environment. Finally, healthcare. As I mentioned, I've been in the private sector. I currently work at Humana, a healthcare provider. My wife's a family practice physician. We see a lot, we hear horror stories of healthcare. There are some things the state can do to incrementally prevent Obamacare from further invading the state and enabling people to have accessible and affordable health care.
Like others have said, I do think that job creation is going to be the next priority for the next state representative from this district, but I do want to reiterate that the government does not create jobs. Business owners create jobs. They hire people, they put people back to work. We need to be very clear about that. Government can get out of the way. Government can reduce regulation and red tape. But right now, it's not just about job creation. Right now, a quick Google search says that there's 4,000 jobs that are available in Waukesha right now, if we were to look. We need to start matching people up with the jobs that they're skilled at and providing skilled professionals to the creators of these jobs, the business owners. I think that comes with looking at tech education. It comes to vocational training. It comes with workforce development. Waukesha County can be a leader in this field, and I think that we should be. The second issue that I'd be looking at is reforming GAB. I think that this is where a lot of our problems start when we look at elections. We need to make sure that they're free and that they're fair. The Government Accountability Board has proven numerous times over the past decade that it needs reform. I think as conservatives, we should be united in this opinion. Third, reducing taxes across the board will be a priority of mine. I will never vote for a tax hike as your next state representative, not one time. Thank you.
Top three priorities. Number one is protecting freedom. Ronald Reagan said freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And so we must be ever diligent in protecting our freedoms. Government has this tendency to grow and to insert itself into our lives. And so as your representative, I will be mindful of your freedoms and make sure that your freedoms are protected and that government doesn't overstep its bounds. Number two, we need to create efficiencies in government. In the private sector, there is competition. And the competition creates or requires efficiencies. In the public sector, unfortunately, we don't have that competition. The city of Waukesha government is your city of Waukesha government. You can't pick another one. You live here. So the state of Wisconsin has an opportunity through the shared revenue program. I believe we can initiate and foster internal cooperation. Because I believe when municipalities fight, taxpayers lose. But when municipalities cooperate, taxpayers win. We need to advance an agenda that will create efficiencies in government at the local level. And number three, I will support Governor Scott Walker's plan to expand Wisconsin's economy. I think we've all said it, that jobs is the number one priority. At least that's sort of what I've heard going across the board, is that it's a pretty important one. We need to believe in ourselves as a state. We need to believe what's possible. We have a great state in terms of natural resources, a great state in terms of human resources. We can do great things. We need to encourage entrepreneurialism. We need to encourage advancement in technology and attract technology entrepreneurs. We can do it.
So
The next question, starting with you, Ms. Cummings, is how would you, as state legislator, inform yourself about issues that will impact library services in the 97th Assembly District, as well as the rest of the state? We had to get a library member.
Well, that's easy for me. First, I would meet with the chairman of the chair of Educational Committee in Madison to get a real handle on the issue. I've already looked into this today, that we already have in place the Alliance for Public Librarians, known as APPLES. I also know that they meet the second Friday of every month. I will make this promise that I will meet with you quarterly so that I truly know what's on the ground floor. I'm truly a candidate is a boots on the ground sort of person. I have learned one thing about government over the last 15 years, and in order to fix a problem, you need to understand it. You need to identify the problem. First, you must take the time to identify and investigate the problem. Get to the root causes. And third, work for stakeholders in order to develop a series of steps necessary to attack the problem most efficiently. Now, it may not necessarily be a problem. It might be a goal or an outcome. And I'm sure that at your meetings that you have the second Friday of every month, that you'll be able to tell me at those times what you would like your state assembly person to do, look into, identify, understand, and investigate. I have learned to do my homework, but there is rarely a silver bullet to any difficult situation. And this is what I promise. I will meet with you, and I will understand your issues and concerns.
It's a very good question, and I look at that from an aspect of communication and promotion. Communication from the standpoint of, you mentioned before how the federated library system isn't very well known. Having it more well known would only be a positive thing, because it directly connects to education. We talk about local control of our education. We have all these members here that are part of this library system, and meeting with each and every one of them in this role as assemblyman would be incredibly important. Would be something I would do, and not just meet with them and communicate with them, but keep that going forward and promote the positivity. I don't look at these as a lot of issues or negativity with items. Here in this city, in Waukesha, we have a fantastic library. Our director does a great job communicating with the local government as well. If we can make each and every one of these libraries as successful as this one with our Waukesha Reach program, the better off we're going to be.
I think one of the biggest ways to stay in touch on what's going on at the library is to come here, which is what Karen and Evelyn and I do. So I have my library card. In fact, I paid off my debts tonight. I had $1.25. My daughter Evelyn had hid 5 books under the couch, and we found them and paid our $1.25 overdue fee. But I know there's over 400,000 items here. I personally use it with my Kindle. I can check out electronic books. I don't know the last time I personally checked out a physical book, but it's neat when a late release comes out and I can get it on my Kindle. When we come to Pajama-Rama upstairs, we'll get some books. Evelyn uses the services, and I can make suggestions and get involved just by coming here and getting involved at that aspect as a member of the library. I will say this, funding to the Waukesha County Library Federation increased the last 4 years of the Doyle administration, and then froze and slightly decreased under Scott Walker's administration the last few years. And I'm okay with that. I think that the library needs to find more private ways to donate. I looked on the website. There isn't a way where a citizen can just donate online. There's a short list of local companies and individuals in the community that donate financially to the library. And I think there's ways to get more private partnership to fund the library so that it isn't so reliant on state government, local government to be funded when the government has downturns and funding gets cut. I think a further reliance and integration with the private sector funding would be a good thing, because we all agree the library is a great place. Even though times are changing and technology is changing, libraries still have a critical place in the public and for infrastructure. Cedarburg is a great example. They just built a massive multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art library. So by no means are libraries going away. I just think there needs to be a greater partnership with private sectors and individuals to fund future library needs.
Like any issue, I think that it comes down to communication. I would pledge to be very much in communication with library staff. I think to take advantage of the knowledge that you bring to the table would be very important to understand the issues that you're facing.
The other aspect, though, that I also think is very important to look at is cost savings. How we can maintain the goal that I think all of us share, which is to have the best library in the world, right here in Waukesha, but also doing it in a cost-effective manner. I think that's something that we can look at, like you mentioned, is ebooks, looking at ways that we can amp up our internet services here in the library. I know that's been an issue for you guys in the past years. That can also be a cost savings at the end of the day. And I do think that that's very important. But to answer your question directly, I think that communication, being here at the library is an important element of this, but also being willing to sit down. As a state representative, I will be very much open to listening to your concerns, to hearing your voice, and talking about ways that we can both have the best library in the world, while also maintaining some level of fiscal sanity and saving taxpayer dollars.
One of my all-time favorite books is by Stephen Covey. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of those habits is seek first to understand and then to be understood. With that in mind, my first and foremost approach to understanding library issues is to listen, but to listen with the intent to understand. It's one thing to talk about libraries. It's another thing to say, well, I need to know and understand what some of your issues are a little bit better before I can talk about what I'm going to do to fix them. So I would listen, and I would be an open ear to hear what some of the concerns are. I would seek input, seek information, and also I understand there's a Wisconsin Library Association, and I would make a commitment to meet with that organization at least annually to understand again, what some of the library issues are and how we as a legislature can help with libraries.
I think one of the roles of the assembly person in any district is to be an ambassador of the district. And to be an ambassador of our library system requires that you have an ongoing dialogue that exists, whether that's on a week-by-week basis or an issue-by-issue basis, where the director and staff feel that they have an open line of communication, whether it's through a telephone or through an email, to reach you and bring up issues that are critically important at that time. And I think that's something that we need to support, regardless of who the winner of the assembly race is. That's the kind of commitment that we need from all 6 of us to make moving forward.
Mr. Perry, we'll begin with question 4, and that is, tell us about any personal experiences you have had with libraries and your favorite book.
I'm really glad I get to go first on this one, despite it's not about issues and we're all going to have a different answer for one. My experiences with libraries, mostly as an adolescent, learning and reading my way through school. My favorite book, this actually took quite a lot of thought. I kind of have 2 answers. The first one being whatever book my 1- and 2-year-old boys want to read, that is my favorite book at the time. They rule the house. But really in thinking about my favorite book, although the answer may sound a bit cheesy, I'm going to share a story with you anyway. My senior year of high school, I went to Lutheran High School, and my senior year, 2nd semester, we had a new teacher. His name's Mr. Coors. And he came in and his our final question for our exam was, why do bad things happen to good people? And we were going to read through the book of Job. And so reading through the book of Job as a 17-year-old kid at the time, just waiting to graduate, basically. I turned 18 in May of that year. The impact that book had on me from a perspective standpoint and of a standpoint of staying strong in your faith has an impact still on me now, 17 years later, now that I'm 34. And really looking forward to teaching that book first, really, to my kids when they get older. That book will always be my favorite book for that reason, because it answers that question, and it was a joy to go through it.
I would say my favorite author is Malcolm Gladwell, and he has a recent top of the charts book called David and Goliath, so I've enjoyed that book. It's not the David and Goliath in the Bible, but it's a really neat book, and it's during the campaign, believe it or not, we have 6 great candidates here, and it's been an intense race the last 4 months, those that have followed. And sometimes when I come home at 8:30 after knocking on doors, Karen will just say, just go sit down and read a book, and that's what I do to kind of check out because it gets a little intense. So that's what I've been reading lately, and almost done with that book. I would say that other experiences I've had at the library, my wife was homeschooled growing up, and she shares stories of how her family spent sometimes the whole day or the whole week at the library. And she would just read through books, and we've encouraged that with our daughter. And it worked for my wife. She went on to earn a full ride in Marquette and then medical college. And I wasn't as bright, but somehow I made it through college. And I now would say more personal experiences relate to anytime I need to get some government information that isn't online. I've been to this library a few times to get public records on the history of Waukesha, maps and genealogy before Ancestry.com was popular, and city council minutes. Those are all things that aren't easily accessible online, and you'd be surprised what you find in the back row or the microfilm of the library, so it's pretty neat.
Well, my personal experiences with library starts at this library, actually. I remember being here as a 4-year-old in this very building, getting a yellow library card. I don't know what year that changed, but it had to have been like 1986. Something way before that one. But yeah, it was here where I first began my love of reading. And I had this strange dream as a kid that I'd be able to escape from my parents and hide upstairs somehow and stay overnight here at this library as well, but that never happened. My favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. To me, that is a quintessential story about justice in America. My favorite nonfiction book would be the biography of Lincoln that you could find, David McCullough's biography of Lincoln, great Civil War historian. I know I've amassed quite a few finds here over the years, and I apologize about that, but reading is one of my favorite all-time things to do. It's definitely needed, and it's definitely a relaxation away from the campaign trail, but it's really been a passion of mine for my entire life. I spent many days here at this building.
Personal experience with library. Well, given that my classmates are now planning our Kettle Moraine High School 30-year reunion, and I'm not able to participate in that planning this summer because I'm a little busy, I thought about telling a story about our attempted senior class prank involving the Kettle Moraine High School library and a bunch of books. But then my kids are here, and I thought maybe that's a conversation we have in private. But I've been a library card holder for as long as I can remember. I have a voracious appetite for knowledge and wisdom. Personally, I love what Zig Ziglar referred to as automobile university. I'm constantly checking out audio CDs and books and listening to them as I drive. Frankly, I prefer to listen to audiobooks than to listen to talk radio or to music. My personal favorite book is the book of Proverbs, written by Solomon. As the inspired Word of God, Proverbs provides great instruction for how to live life.
My personal experiences with the library have been many. As a father with a 6-year-old and 9-year-old, I find that the library is a place to build life lessons for them, understand the responsibility of other people's belongings and the care and concern and returning things on time and the joy of reading, all of those things that happen as a family unit. This is a family destination. It is, should be for families more than just a place to come and get some reference material or information like that. It is part of a culture that a community builds around. And I think, Brandon, you mentioned the Cedarburg Library. I think that's where they place a value on the culture that's happening in the community centered around some of our bigger infrastructure items such as a library. My favorite book, although we are all Christians up here and we all speak about our faith very openly, which is a very refreshing piece, my favorite book is a book by Andy Andrews. If you have not read The Traveler's Gift, he will take you through a series of 7 decisions or choices that you can make, culminating with the meeting of Archangel Michelangelo and a surprise twist at the end of the story. And it really is a book founded in how you can build a life by choice and one that is beneficial to you and your community.
Personal experiences. Libraries have been an intricate part of my entire life. I remember as a freshman in high school, I wanted to understand the game of football better, so that when I attended it, I knew what the heck was going on. And I learned what a halfback, a fullback, and a quarterback was. But really, fast forwarding into my adulthood, I would say libraries have been the core of our family's existence. My son Joseph is a young man with autism, but he was a child with autism as well. What was here at Waukesha was the toy lending library. It offered us a solution to find toys which would reach him. It no longer exists, but that doesn't mean it wasn't any less important. We checked out musical record players, we checked out puzzles. Some toys worked and some toys didn't. I read to my son Joseph 4 hours a day for 3 years so that he would learn a life skill. Books and music were the window to my son's world. We checked out books regularly at both the public and the school libraries. But we always looked forward to the summer reading programs where we had to, I think, read 30 books to fill out the little stampers. I now presently reserve the room for merit badges where I work with young men to become leaders. But my favorite book right now, or was for the last many years, was Harry Potter. And you might think that's rather silly, but when you have teenagers, you got to find a way to reach them. You have to find a way where you can have a conversation, because they don't want to hear from you. Somehow you strengthen family bonds, you foster the love of reading. It sparked many hours of countless conversations, we all trying to predict what would happen. And as a family, we were connected. Something was always we discussed about Harry Potter. Thank you. So it's an entire series.
Thank you. Question number 5, beginning with you, Ms. Roesner. What is your plan for communicating with constituents for questions, problems, and sharing information?
The state representative at the Capitol really goes about this 2 ways. There's proactively communicating with constituents via press releases, Facebook, Twitter, the local radio. And we're privileged here in Waukesha to have a Waukesha Freeman. Early on in the campaign, I went in and met with the editorial board, and that's one way that thousands of folks can find out every day what's going on in local and state government, to have a local paper. They're going away. There aren't a lot of them left, but we're really privileged to have them. So there's a proactive way that a candidate and then a state representative can communicate to constituents. And then there's the responsive and reactive way. State representative is assigned at least one caseworker, and often constituents will call, whether they voted for me or not, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. When they call the state office, they might have an issue with a state agency, they might be dealing with the Department of Revenue, they might be dealing with a federal agency, and they need someone to handhold them through that casework. And one of the things that is important at the state office is to have responsible, responsive, knowledgeable staff that can handle constituent casework. Another way that I learned from Congressman Sensenbrenner that he communicates to constituents is to have regular town hall meetings. He has his here, actually. For those that get his flyers, he'll come here every 6 months or so, go to various parts of the district, and I believe a state representative could easily coordinate at the same time that Congressman Sensenbrenner is here to make those very informative sessions for those that want to come out and hear what's going on, not only in Washington, but in Madison. So those are a few of the ideas that I have, in addition to leveraging technology to make a very easily accessible way for someone to reach me as a state representative.
I think that this issue begins with the state representatives themselves being open to listening to their constituents. I think it's the #1 priority as a state representative. It would be to represent you in Madison, and that starts with hearing from you. So I would be very open. I would certainly encourage not only town meetings, but I would try to do so on a monthly basis to have a town hall, to hear your concerns, to hear your issues, and to talk to you. I think one of the things that we probably all have learned during the course of this campaign is the value of talking to people one-on-one. As we've all been knocking on doors and talking to people at their homes, it becomes important to gather that feedback, to understand the issues that are important. And it re-emphasizes the idea that we're there to represent this community, not just a certain political party or an ideology, not any special interest, but to represent you. I think that the other thing that has been drilled into me someone who's actually worked up at the state capitol. I started as a person who did constituent services. I started first as an intern with now Governor Scott Walker, but he was then an assemblyman when I was a college freshman back at UW-Madison. And it's continued on when I was in Dan Knodl's office in this recent session. Looking at constituents and their issues has been a job that I've actually done. In my office, there will be a sign that will be posted on day one that will say we will respond to all constituent questions or inquiries within 24 hours. There will be a rule in my office that will never be violated.
I've got over 21 years of providing customer service, so I will apply those skills and practices that I've developed to providing constituent service. Frankly, it starts with the simple things, returning phone calls and emails and letters. I think that there's some great ideas that we've talked about here, and I'm pleased to hear that everyone's sort of echoing the same sort of thing. We are a representative of the citizens of the 97th district. It's our job as a representative to be responsive to that constituency. I think the town hall meetings is an excellent way of having that face-to-face interaction besides emails and phone calls, but to allow people to meet with their representative a few times a year is an excellent idea. So all of these things are important, and you can be assured that as your state representative, I will engage with all the members of the 97th district as needed.
Over the past 4 years in the town of Waukesha, I've held several town hall meetings where I invited constituents to come in and meet with me and brought all of the supporting documents and data that I've compiled to support the decisions or votes that I have made. This gave constituents the opportunity to kind of pull back the curtain and not just see whether I voted for or against something, but to actually look at the facts behind why I voted for or against something. I think that's an important facet to bring to an office like this, is to make sure that you are committed to having that open dialogue with residents that have concerns. It isn't just about saying we'll have a town hall meeting, whether that's annually or quarterly. It is about having that open line of communication. Again, my cell phone number, as an example, through the election has been sitting probably right on my home page, just a few scrolls down, so that if people had concerns, I was easily reachable. That's a process that I intend to continue. It's one that I've done in my private business. My cell phone number is my home phone number, so if someone's going to call it, it will get answered and a call will get returned if I have a listen.
Thank you. This is not something new for me. I've been communicating with my constituents for the last 15 years. I currently use the phone, and my phone number's been on 8,000 pieces of lip times 3 at this point. So everybody has my phone number, by mail and by email. But at the state level, you need to bump up your game a little bit. So I will add additional pieces to that program. As I said earlier, I intended to meet with librarians at their Alliance for Public Librarians meetings quarterly, but I also intend to have quarterly listening sessions at the library, where we can arrange ahead of time, have constituents come, we can have a conversation. It all starts with a conversation, the give and take of a conversation, and I will rotate that among libraries. I will have, my website will continue, a quarterly newsletter will be implemented, and again, I will use social media. I value the conversation I have with my constituents. It might be a little different when you call me. It might be you call me and I can't jump in the car and get over on Blackhawk right away, but I will jump in the car and still talk to you or pick up a phone. It's a wonderful opportunity of give and take. Thank you.
I look at this from a service standpoint. We learn what's best in government from other people. Over the last 18 months as alderman, I've learned a lot from other people and their feedback that they've given me. First, I can tell you what I will commit to. I'll commit to 2 open, informal town hall meetings each year. And people communicate in different ways. People communicate face-to-face, that's my preference, and most likely that'll never change. But people communicate in several different ways. Another one of them is email. Those who would like it will get quarterly emailed updates of what's going on in Madison and how it affects our district. as well as the issues that we've talked about, that I've talked about during this campaign, you'll see progress on those after I'm elected. And let me tell you what I've already been doing. A good example is, I apologize for pointing you out, but in the corner, Dean in Waukesha, who I've been connecting with on Twitter now for at least 18 months, ever since I've been an alderman. That's nice to finally meet him, of course. But what I've been doing is connecting with people and matching their communication style. Raise your hand if you're on Facebook. I actually expected more. But there's 1 billion people in this world on Facebook. There's over 500 million on Twitter. Not every problem is solved on social media, but as an assemblyman, we have to match the communication style of everybody. That's how you actually represent everybody. Face-to-face will never be replaced, but we have to match the communication style of people. And that's a way to get information to people quickly. That's the world we live in now. We're going forward, we're not going backwards. Recently in my own neighborhood, when we had some break-ins, our own police chief trusted information with me to get it to my constituents quicker than anybody else. People watched the news that night on Channel 6 on what happened, and they already knew what happened because they'd heard it from me.
Thank you. And now we're at our final question, and we do have time to expand your allowed response time, so you'll have 3 minutes to respond to the final question. You're all doing very well. Stay within the time limit. So, and then there'll be an opportunity for a few minutes for people after the end of the forum to have a chance to meet you. So I want to give people a chance to do that as well. So thank you. So final question. Please give us your closing statement.
Well, first, let me just thank you all again for being here tonight. I can't emphasize enough how important it is, I think, that you're here, that you're participating in our democracy, that you're actively involved in our community, that you're willing to spend some time with the 6 of us here this evening to get to know us a little bit better. And I hope that this has been educational for everybody, and that you will come away with a sense of not just who you're going to vote for, but a sense that there are good people in this race and still good people in politics, and I think that that's an important facet to take from this election. I believe in the value of serving this community. I've spent my entire life here in Waukesha. I believe in public service, and I believe that we should be looking at policy and not politics. And that should be our first priority. As the next state representative sitting, one of us is sitting here up in the stage tonight, I think that we need to make sure that that is our priority. And not just looking at political games, not looking at special interests, but looking at what we can do to improve the 97th Assembly District to make this the best place in the world to live, work, and to raise a family. I also believe that we need to be looking at the experience that we all bring to the table. I believe that I have the best combination of both the experience of being a lifelong resident of this area, knowing this district's issues, along with the knowledge that comes with working up at the state capitol, writing bills and policy and legislation. For Republican leadership during a very intense time in our state's history during the Act 10 debate, working on other pieces of other vital Republican bills like voter ID, like the right to conceal carry. These are issues that I believe are indicative of our community as well, because this is a conservative community, and I can represent those values. I will not need a GPS. I do not need a GPS to get around Waukesha, and I also do not need to take a tour once I get up at the state capitol in Madison. I look forward to earning your vote on August 12th, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions after this forum is completed. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate, thank you all for attending tonight. This is America, and you're participating in the process, and congratulations to you. You know, it's so easy for us, as opponents, to find fault in one another. However, I wanted to take this opportunity to extend sincere compliments to each of my opponents. Joe Bansky. It is clear to me that Joe is a religious and faithful man. I am further convinced that he fundamentally has conservative convictions, and he is passionate about his convictions. Kathleen Cummings. Kathleen is a hard worker, and she is tenacious, and I respect that. I also have no doubt that she cares about people. Erin Terry. I've observed that Erin is a good communicator. I also like that he is clever and innovative. Brandon Roesner. Brandon has impressed me with his moxie. He's also an excellent networker. Both of these traits I wish I could bottle and give doses to the real estate salespeople in my office. Vince Travato. It has become evident to me that Vince is a deep thinker, and he has a high level of intellect. I've also found him to be genuinely a good guy. He's always friendly. It has been a pleasure running this race. You all have my respect and admiration.
I thought you were looking at my notes for a minute. This primary process has been nothing short of amazing for me. It's been just an awesome journey. I have come away with a new great friend in Vince Travato, who, as Scott mentioned, is just the most likable guy you'll ever stroll across. I've been able to network a little bit with Scott, even though we've been in the same industry, banking side, real estate side. We have never crossed paths before, and interacted with the other members of the peer group here. They've made me challenge my way of thinking and look at pieces differently. I want to thank the people who received me at their doors and received all of us at their doors. At this point, we have knocked individually on thousands of doors. Your arm starts to get cramped from ringing the doorbell button. It's a great journey to hear from. And I would ask one thing from the community as we wrap up these forums, and that is to please go back to being American first. The most difficult challenge that I know I faced at the doors was the initial question of, are you a Democrat or a Republican? And towards the end of knocking on doors last week, my answer changed. And it changed to say, I'm American, what are you? And it changed that way because too many times I was told when I answered Republican, a hand went up like this and we were told, we have nothing to talk about. That is anti-American. America was built on differing opinions and different points of view, and they were talked through and walked through, and policies were created to address the challenges. We need to get back to that kind of America, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to run. This race for me, I've said it many times, is a personal one. Although there are policy issues attached to it, like Common Core, like heroin, meeting a mother who lost her child just in July to a heroin overdose. I say that's the last time I want to meet a mother who starts to cry in front of me and says, my child of 16 died of a heroin overdose. It is time for our community, regardless of who our assembly leader is, to promote a stiffer penalty. It shouldn't be that the maximum prison sentence you can get for selling heroin to our kids is 12 years. That should be a minimum of a Class D felony, which would give a 25-year sentence, which is a similar level to how we treat child pornography. We have serious problems in our society. Heroin is killing our kids, and I hope whoever wins, they take Common Core and heroin and champion that issue so our families are represented.
Members of the Federated Library Board System, members of the audience, thank you for arranging this forum and for coming tonight out of your busy day. You know, all of us have different reasons as to why we got into the race or why we chose public service. For me, it was my father and grandfather that set the example for me. My father was a man of few words. His daughter has too many sometimes. But the reality of it is you learn from your parents. Then there was another woman named Fern Berenson. She knocked on my door and said, I asked for your vote. She was the alderman of the 9th District. I had one baby on the hip at that time, and I voted for her. She came around again. I voted for her again. I said, I could never do what you do. And she said, oh, yes, you can, and you will. And I am the alderman of the 9th District. I will leave you with 3 main reasons why you will want to vote for me on August the 12th. I am proven, prepared, and passionate. Proven. I have been a county board supervisor for the past 15 years and alderman for 13 years. My experience both in city and county government has given me the insight and experience necessary to work towards effective solutions. My re-elections demonstrate that my constituents are confident in me. Prepared. I embrace the scouting motto, to be prepared, taken from the Knight's Code, be always ready. I'm prepared to take on this new and very important challenge. My county board experience has especially prepared me for this challenge because county government is considered to be the direct arm of our state government. Passionate. Believe it or not, I still believe this. I believe we, the people, are in charge of our government. It's a funny little thing. When I got to City Hall, you couldn't be heard from your government. In other words, there was no public comment. I worked to change that. I didn't win the first time. It took me 2 times. So that tells you I don't give up when I passionately believe in something. If you elect me on August the 12th, I promise I will work for you. I will be the government watchdog in the 97. I am faithfully dedicated to your issues and your concerns. And even if I have to sometimes go against the grain, and you've all seen that, I will do what's right for you. I ask for your vote. Vote Cummings, proven, prepared, and passionate.
Thank you. This election is huge. One of the 6 of us up here is going to represent you, and if we do our job, most likely for years to come. So this election is very, very important. So that being said, thank you for putting this on tonight, and thank you for coming and listening to us, spending your night and my anniversary. Sorry, I mentioned that too. One of the, I'm running for this because I looked at the opportunity. I spoke with a lot of people. I took 4 weeks of really dissecting every aspect that goes into running. And the one question I really had to ask myself, because I had to ask everybody else for the next 4.5 months, is, are you the best candidate for this? I respect everybody that's up here. Putting yourself on a ballot is an experience I'm yet to be able to describe to someone else. But I have to be able to ask myself, are you the best candidate? And then look each and every one of you in the eye. And when I knock on doors and when we do these forums and tell you, yes, I'm the best person. I'm the person you should vote for. And the reason is local control is vital. In this community especially, we're such a close-knit community, and local control and having that access to your local leaders who have that impact. A lot of those local leaders I see in the room tonight, other aldermen and county board supervisors, they're the people that represent you. They're the people who've earned your trust. Why not put that control with them? Elect someone who has a vision of jobs in this community and having an active role in it. That's part of the assemblyman's job in my view. It hasn't been, but it is when I'm assemblyman. And finally, growing the party is important. I believe our ideas are best. I believe our ideas are best to move the state and the country forward. You need someone with that vision and has a priority who will earn the trust of the voters. We've talked a lot up here about representing everybody, and that's true. But it's also making the case for those who may not disagree with you that you're right. Choose that common ground and work together. And finally, I don't have allegiances to anybody. I mentioned this the other night. I see a lot of new faces in the room, so I'm going to say it again. I don't have allegiances to anybody. I don't owe anybody anything. I don't owe any special interest anything after this. The only people I owe anything to are God, my family, and the taxpayers, and that's who I intend on serving.
Thanks to all who came out tonight. Throughout the forums, and we've had a few of them along the way. Some evenings I've spent more time with my opponents than my wife. I've seen a lot of the familiar faces from each campaign, and you guys know who you're voting for. There's some here that don't know who you're voting for, and there's some that will watch this online and don't know who they're voting for yet. While I appreciate the kind words from Scott on each of us, there are clear differences. I believe Waukesha needs a fresh start at the State Assembly. My private sector background makes me uniquely qualified to represent us at the state level. When my wife graduated medical college and then residency, we were in Waukesha. She got calls to go all over the state or across the country. We could have gone anywhere to set up her medical practice, and we chose Waukesha. We chose to stay because it's a great place to live and work grow family. And I want to represent Waukesha to continue to make it a great place to live, work, and grow a family. I would ask, if you don't know who you're going to vote for, ask a local community leader, ask an elected official, ask a small business owner. And they'll tell you, when they've examined the field of 6, all great candidates, but there are differences with us. Differing views on taxes, government spending, the view of marriage, the role of government in a lot of issues in life. There are differences. Folks that know Waukesha best and folks that know us best, many of those leaders in the business, community, and government have endorsed me, from County Sheriff Trewicki, to business leaders like Don Taylor at Waukesha State Bank, to folks over at Generac, to folks in government and elsewhere. So if you don't know who you're voting for tonight, check out all of our websites, ask a local leader, check your mailbox because you'll be getting a lot of mail from all of us in the next few days. But I hope you'll choose a fresh start because I think that's what Waukesha needs. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you to all of you. We certainly appreciate your time and really appreciate all the information that you shared with us this evening. And a great big thank you, most of all, to Grant Lynch and the staff of Waukesha Public Library for setting the room up and having the space available. Libraries are important. Having community gathering spaces for events such as this is an important part of our democracy. So thank you, and don't forget to vote.